Hi everyone, Simon here. So to get the formalities out of the way, yes, I'm wearing a smiley giraffe shirt. The reason why I wear a smiley giraffe shirt sometimes, or a smiley t-shirt of any form, is my students often get nervous when they come for a lesson, and this calms them down. So hopefully you can hear me today. This is going to be the first of probably weekly videos where you guys in the week can answer what are you struggling with and what are you finding difficult, and hopefully I can answer a few of those questions. So hopefully you can hear me. Today we're going to look at a couple of questions that I got asked during the week, because I probably don't have time to do loads. Please just do write where you're from. Please just say where you're up to. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. Hey Stuart, how you doing? Hopefully you can see me all right. Hopefully you can see my friend here, Mr. Giraffe. Hey, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it Nigel? Apologies if I pronounce that and mullered your name. It's not intentional, but waves to you. So I got a question from Jose or Jose. I'm just mullering names today. You know, just get that out there right now. What can I do so I don't rush when playing? It's hard for me to not play before the beat. Well, there's a big question in terms of rhythmically. What can I do to not play before the beat? Well, there are some favourite friends that you can use and use more of. The most neglected friend in the guitar toolkit. Anybody want to hazard a guess what the most neglected tool in the guitar toolkit is? I'll give you a couple of seconds to work that out. What is the most neglected tool in the guitar toolkit? Anybody? Any ideas what the most neglected tool in the guitar toolkit is? I'm going to tell you. It's a metronome, or as you can see, a big white screen. So when you're working on trying to get yourself tight rhythmically, there is no better tool. Hi Christoph, how you doing, buddy? The metronome. Stuart, you nailed it. The best friend of a guitarist and a musician is the metronome. It's the most neglected friend as well. So I worked out a little sequence for you here today. Pretty simple. E minor 7, D major 7, A11 or G over B, depending on where you are. My phone's just told me I'm live. That's really helpful. Thanks, phone. So E minor 7, nothing bar the 7th fret, 9th fret of the D string, 8th fret of the B string, D major 7 bar the 5th, nothing 5, 7, 6, 7, 5, and G over A or an A11, 5, nothing, 5, 4, 3, nothing. So those are our chords. Let's slow that down a little bit. I'm going to be about 80 BPM. Hopefully you can hear my favourite friend, Mr. Metronome. Not my favourite friend, we don't get on that great a lot of the time. But here's a little sequence. So E minor 7, D major 7, that's D major 7. Now you'll notice the garden gnome, if you're talking about my giraffe, he is my happy friend that makes my students feel relaxed, Nigel. It works because hopefully at least one of you is smiling. Thanks, Christoph. Appreciate it, dude. I'm hammering on there for any of you wanting a little challenge in your D major 7. From the 5th fret on the B string to the 7th fret. Okay, so tip number 1, the question once again for anyone who's just joined, what can I do so I don't rush when playing? Well, play more with a metronome. I know that sounds like basic advice, but it's probably the best advice I can give you here. The second way that you can do things is to play with drum tracks. Now, hopefully, I have a drum track set up here. I've got a lot of things going on, so bear with me. So you can now try your sequence. What did I do? E minor. Hi, Scott. Thanks, mate. Hi Tim, the boss is in the house, everybody. So that's the second way that you can practice. to get things sounding a bit tighter. Sorry, I'm going to try and shut. The first way you can get yourself sounding tighter is with a metronome. Hey man! Here's our chords again, E minor 7, D major 7, A11 or A over D. The second way you can get yourself sounding tighter is playing with a drum track. The third way, hi Kevin. Probably mullered your name as well. I seem to be mullering everyone's name tonight, but hopefully I'll make up with it with smiley giraffes. So play with a metronome, play with a drum track. The third way that you can really get yourself sounding tight in pocket is playing with other musicians and trying to lock in with the kick of the drums and the snare and the bassist. Generally, you're going to be playing with a drummer and a bassist. You are the rhythm section. I don't have a drum and bass section. You got it right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So you've got your little sequence again. I don't have a drum and bass track, but then you're just working on 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So playing tight with a metronome, with a drum track, with other musicians, specifically the drummer and the bassist, and hopefully. The question again, what can I do to not rush when playing? It's hard for me to not before the beat. Well, often the other reason is that people play before the beat is they're uncomfortable with the chord change or what they're playing. So they're trying to rush to the next bit. So a lot of my students do this too. They'll go 2, 3, and then they'll push the next beat. You've just got to get confident. Just make sure that the chords are absolutely in the pocket before you move. I'm trying to talk, read messages, and do this. So this is not easy to do all at the same time. So those are my tips for sounding tighter when you're playing. Metronome, all day long, best friend, most neglected friend in the guitar toolkit. Sorry, there's a fly in here now as well. That's great. Drum tracks, a far more fun way to practice than a metronome, in my opinion. Playing with other musicians, namely, hi Douglas, how you doing? Playing with other musicians, namely drummers and bassists, because they are notoriously more in time than we are. And not practicing things individually. So just working on your chords, just working on a strumming pattern, and then blending that together. And then when you're in the pocket, you will learn to sync that better. So that was question 1. If anyone has any other questions, I'll try and get them to them, but I might not be able to get to all of them today. Question 2 I had is enormous. It's from Jordan, or Jordan Lee, should I say. Tips for improving improvisation. That's an enormous question, all right? But he says, I know the usual advice, play along with backing tracks, but any additional tips? Wow. Tips to improve your improvisation, people. Well, my number 1 tip is going to sound a bit condescending, and I don't mean it to, but the more you do it, the better it gets. Same with anything. My number 2 tip would be to put on your iTunes list, or whatever music player you use. Hi, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Is it Jumi? I'm just mullering people's names today. Alif. So my number 1 tip here would be put on a random song in your playlist that you maybe don't know very well. I'm just going to whack on a track here. Let me see what I've got. A lot of my stuff is worship songs, so I'm probably not going to do that. Okay, what about a song from PJ Morton? Okay, go through your phone. Here's a classic tune. So find out what key the song is. And then take that little song. I'll find out the key, in this case, E flat minor. Start within your minor pentatonic position 1 or blues shape. And then start and work on some sort of melody. Let me try and just skip forward to a drum bit. Work on a melody. The most important thing for me with improvisation, excuse me, is melodic content. That's my opinion. I believe that melodic elements to a solo or an improvisation should provide the backbone. Not everyone might agree with that. There might be some shredmongers people in the room going, that's cool. I love that too, and I love doing that. But I believe that building a melody should provide the main element of your improvisation. Thank you for the hearts and the likes. So once you've come up with some sort of melody, that became a little bit, I'm trying to think of a word, noodly. I was going to use a rude word there. You can work on some kind of melodic line. Keep it simple at first. Try and work it in multiple positions. Thanks, Jan or Yan. Then you can work on a specific technique. So you can say, I'm only going to play bends. Now, I don't mean you have to play just bends. I just mean don't go adding in loads of legato and other things. So put on your track again and do a random track each day. This is how I practice. So I'm just going to work on some bending ideas. It's actually really hard to just do one technique. So once you've done bends over the track, do hammer-ons and pull-offs, do slides, etc., etc., etc. So melodies. Tip number one for improvisational things. Yes, play over backing tracks. That's fantastic advice. Yes, play out with other people. But I like to work it from quite a technical point of view because I like techniques. So melodies, number one importance to me. Then I take a specific technique. Bends, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, vibrato. Just working on getting some silky vibrato. Go back to it somewhere. Just vibrato. Vibrato and slides. So once you've done bends, slides, hammer-ons on their own, you pick two. Vibrato and slides. Vibrato and bends. Bends and slides. You get my point. Okay? So once you've done that, you pick three. Then you pick a specific scale shape. So here we've been working mainly in position one. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for the things kicking off. I'll give you all, guys. I can't do a heart. But then you change positions. For example, around the A minor shape. Yeah, then you change positions again. Then you change scale type. Maybe you'll add in your blues note. Thank you for the thumbs ups and stuff. So if you've just done your pentatonic, do your blues. Then start to blend melodies, techniques, positions, scale shapes. Okay, next up, try double stops. So do a round over your track, just playing double stops. That's harder than it sounds. Oh. How to master the chords. That's an enormous question. I will try and do that in a future live video for you. So I will get to that, but maybe not today. So now just try and just double stops. Okay, so to recap so far, how to improve your improvisation. Hello, Michael. Lovely to have you here. Thank you for giving me your time on a Saturday evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's 10:15 here, so it's nearly time to do some other bits. But so the question I got once again was tips to improve improvisation. I know the usual advice, play along with backing tracks. My tips are start with melody, always. That's number one to me in how I approach a solo. Then take techniques, work on bending, work on sliding, work on vibrato, work on hammer-ons and pull-offs, work on tapping, work on picking. Whatever it is you're working on, build that after your melodic content. Then I would look at different scale shapes, different positions on the neck, different scale types, blending that with melody, boom, 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 coming up there like that. So then, you know, there are many different ways you can approach this, but if you start with melodic content and then working on techniques, and you can just put on your iTunes list and go, okay, then the next song comes on. I'll pick another song here just to demonstrate how I would do this a little bit quickly because I've been talking. Let me just try and find another song here. What about something off George Benson? If there's any George Benson fans in the house. Here's Breezing. A lot of you will know this tune. So if I was trying to do that, I'm going to start on melodies again. This tune is in D major. Happen to know this tune, but you may or may not know the tune you're working on. So start with melody. Getting a little bit neo-soul there. Then work on your techniques, then work on your things there. So those are my tips for improvisation today, hopefully from a different standpoint. The other thing you can do is only allow yourself a single string. I do this a lot with my students. So for example, Breezing is in D major. An easy way to try and work on new melody ideas is take a D string. There's my D major scale. It's open 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. And then try writing just a melody on one string. It's a lot harder than it looks. Then when you've written a melody on one string, I'm going to cut Mr. George Benson off because he's getting into his melody. When you've written a melody on one string, try and transfer that around the neck into different possessions. Can't even remember what I did now. Something like this. Here he comes. Etc. Okay, so those are my tips today in terms of rhythm playing. Use a metronome more. Best advice, if you take no advice from this little tips here, go and buy a metronome. What metronome app am I using? I'm using an app called Tempo. It's fantastic. I don't know, it's like a couple of quid or a few dollars. Buy it and it'll be your best friend for life. Use drum tracks. It's a more fun way of using a metronome. I'm a big fan. Play with other musicians and try and lock in with the kick and the snare specifically and the bass player. The tighter those are, the tighter it will sound. And work on your chords and everything you're playing rhythmically individually before you're trying to play it with a track. For improvisational techniques, try playing a melody first, working on a melody, working on specific techniques on their own, bending, vibrato, slides, hammer-ons, pull-offs, legato, whatever it is you're working. Then combine them, bends and vibrato. Work on different tracks. How I learned to solo, I always get asked this every day. I just had CDs at my parents' house when I was very young, mainly Michael Jackson, and I just pressed play. All I could play was my minor pentatonic position 1. That's all I knew, but I could do it well. So I generally say to people, I'd far rather hear a great solo that wasn't all over the place because it was crafted. Anyway, put on your soloing list, use different scale shapes, different positions, single string. Hopefully that gives you some new ideas. This is episode 1 of Simon Says. I am away this next week, but if you have specific questions for me, I will be back in a couple of weeks' time to make this a regular feature because we're dedicated to you, your playing and all your needs here. We love you from Fundamental Changes. Take care from me and the Smiley Giraffe. I will see you soon. You'll be waiting for my next live video. Well, thank you. That is a pleasure. I'm really happy to have you here. I hope you've learned something today. Take care, everybody. You can watch this back, try out these ideas and get in touch. Hope it's been useful. See you soon.